Hey, friends and family. A warm welcome to you all. Thanks so much for joining us on the Nava's Kitchen today, and I hope you all are doing fantastic. Ever wondered how they fill those soft, pillowy donuts up with stuff like vanilla custard? That many years ago used to really bother me that I could not crack it down, but we are about to find out how to do that on this video, so keep on watching. So on the menu today is our vanilla filled custard donuts. So I am measuring 4 level cups of flour into my mixing bowl. Ingredients plus their measurements, as always, have been listed in the description box below. Now I just added some sugar, followed by the nutmeg. We want that essence. It's warm and inviting. Then we add some salt to it. Of course, when you have sugar in there, the salt helps the sugar to taste better. We're going to whisk all of our dry ingredients together and set it aside. Here comes our next step, which is combining our wet ingredients. Now, key, your wet ingredients ought to be at room temperature. Before you even start combining, make sure they are at room temperature. So I have some milk and I'm whisking my eggs, and I'm going to combine that with the milk. And then I'm going to add my melted butter, which is coming up right now. Now I'm also going to add my yeast to this mixture. Now a real key here is you need to test your batch of yeast. So when you purchase your yeast, it always comes in a batch. Test it first and make sure it's active. So I've already done that. This is how to do it. You want to add your yeast to a warm mixture like milk. Add a little sugar to it, whisk it, cover it with a damp kitchen cloth, set it aside for about 10 minutes, and you should have a frothiness on it, okay? It should form foam on top of it to indicate that it is active. So I have done that. So I know this yeast is active, so I'm not going to do that in this video, okay? Active meaning is going to let your dough rise, basically, okay? So now we are combining both components, the dry and the wet. So what I did was turn the machine on slowly to begin, and then I drizzle the wet ingredients into the dry and use the dough hook to combine them. Now this dough is typically wet, perfect for donuts. Bread donut, not necessarily, but we're making donuts, so it's going to be wet and stickier than usual. Now you're going to turn the speed up slightly when the dough forms, and do that for about 8 minutes, and the dough is going to be soft, stretchy, and sticky. You'll notice that it even stuck to the inner walls of the mixing bowl. Perfect. Now we're greasing our proofing bowl, and we want to grease all sides, including the bottom, generously with some oil. We're going to pour our dough onto our clean working surface. All I'm going to do, I'm not going to knead it. I'm just going to form it into a spherical shape so that it can rise in the bowl. Now see how soft, how stretchy it is. It is also sticky, but it's not sticking to my fingers because I just greased the proofing bowl and I still have some oil on my hands. That's how you want it to be. You want it to be sticky, soft, and stretchy. So a little kneading, I can help it. It felt so good in my hands. I had to knead a little bit, but you don't have to. So now we're going to form it into that sphere. Perfect. And it's going to go into the bowl and get ready for proofing. Now proofing is going to take about an hour for me, because what I do is I turn my oven on at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for just 2 minutes, just to warm it up, and then I turn it off. Okay, so it becomes warm inside the oven, and then I place the dough in there. About an hour later, it should double in size, and that's what you want. You want your dough to double in size. That will be your indication that it's formed enough air pockets inside the dough and is ready for the next step. So I cover with a cling film, followed by a damp kitchen cloth, and in my warm oven it goes for 1 hour. Now let's prepare the custard. Now for the custard, we need 4 egg yolks. So I'm going to separate the yolks, which is the yellow part, from the white. The white I'll set aside and use it to make a meringue in a separate preparation later. So that's how to do it. Just crack it open and use a shell to separate it. Just like that. So pretty and so yellow. We're going to do that with all 4. This is my best shot in this video right here. I love it. So pretty. Very aesthetic. All right, so all 4 egg yolks are now separated. I'm going to add my sugar. This is a 1/4 cup of sugar. You can add more or less, depending on how sweet your tooth is. All right, so once that's combined, we're going to whisk together. Start slowly and burst your yolks and then whisk. You're going to now vigorously whisk these components together. You want the sugar to begin melting, which will turn the mixture into a pale yellow color as you go, as you can see here. Right before your eyes, it should start transforming and it becomes really smooth and beautiful. Now I am adding the thickener, which is corn starch. You can also use rice flour, okay? So whisk that also together until it becomes really nice and smooth. I'm going to be adding some whole milk here momentarily. That's going to thin it up so that we can cook this mixture until it's thickened, if that makes sense. So it's like going backwards. You thicken it first with a thickener and then you thin it up. What sense does that make? But it'll make sense here in a moment. Just keep on watching. So now that that's combined, we're going to add the whole milk. The whole milk, by the way, does not have to be at room temperature because we're going to cook it anyway. All right, so I am going to be adding 1.5 cups of whole milk. Now, in the video, you'll notice that I'm adding, it almost seems like it's 3 cups because I used the 1/2 cup measuring cup. So I have to measure it 3 times. I have to use 3 of those to get 1.5 cups, if that makes sense, okay? So there it is. Here's 1/2 cup, followed by another 1/2 cup, and then another 1/2 cup to make the 1.5 cups, all right? Okay, so we're gonna whisk it all in. We need to whisk again because we want to be sure that our mixture is devoid of lumps. Okay, we want a very smooth custard when we cook this. Okay, so start slowly and then whisk it in till the thicker mixture is dissolved into the milk. Now, another step, which is not mandatory, but I like to do that because the eggs do have the membranes on them, the egg yolks, and I like to strain that out. I don't like that in my custard, so I just strain it using a fine strainer. You see those right there? Yeah, I don't need that. So yeah, you can do that to get rid of those. And then on the stove it goes. We are going to set it on medium heat and we're going to stir it constantly. You don't walk away from this. You stay there and you give it all the TLC you can, okay? You step away, it's gonna start catching on the bottom. It's gonna start thickening on the bottom, and then before you know it, you have lumps, which is what we want to avoid. Now, I also just added a pinch of salt. That's essential. When you have this much sugar in your custard, you add a pinch of salt. That'll help the sugar to taste better. Now, as you can see before your own eyes, it has become thick. We are almost done cooking. This is the consistency you want. Lump-free, thick, smooth, and just luscious. It's very pretty too. Now I just added my vanilla extract, and I add it toward the end when it's almost done cooking, because if you add it in the beginning, as it continues to cook, it will dissipate. It will kind of get away from you. That beautiful vanilla flavor will just disappear. So you want to add it when it's almost done cooking. Keeping in mind the vanilla extract has alcohol in it, and what happens to alcohol when you cook it is the alcohol disappears. You cook it out. So yeah, now we've poured it into our bowl. We're going to set it in the fridge for it to cool down and chill before we use it to fill our donuts. You're going to cover it with a cling film, and you want the cling film to have direct contact with the top of the custard so that it doesn't form a a thick leathery layer when it's cooling down. So it stays in the fridge for a while till it's cooled down. Now an hour later, our dough has risen. Yes, it has risen from the dead. All right, it's doubled in size. Okay, so that's what we want, and we're going to flour our surface there and just pour the dough onto it. See how it came out of the rising bowl? Yeah, it came out really nice and smooth, no hassle. That's what you want. This is because we greased it generously in the sides as well. So you're going to use your hands to flatten the dough. While doing that, you're also actually deflating it, which is an important step. You're going to sprinkle a little bit of flour onto it, and with your rolling pin, you're going to smoothen it out. You don't want to roll it too much, okay? Don't apply too much pressure. What you want is just for it to be smooth, and you want about 1/2 inch thickness throughout. And there it is. Now for the donuts, I'm going to be using a round cookie cutter to cut them out. And I'm using a round cookie cutter which measures 3 inches at the diameter. Okay, now when I'm cutting, I'm going to try not to be wasteful. Okay, and in so doing, I had some that were not perfectly round. All right, and that's okay. It's homemade, and nothing is better than homemade. All right, so now also keep in mind that you can use any shape you want, any shape cookie cutter that you want, but the round works perfectly for this because we're going to be filling it with the custard. Now, right after you're done cutting them out, you're ready to fry. So you should have your oil heating up already for you. You want your oil temperature to be at 360 degrees Fahrenheit to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. I find 360 degrees Fahrenheit to be the perfect temperature to start frying your donuts in. Why? Because it cooks evenly and slowly, helps to inflate the dough as it cooks, okay? And it doesn't cook too fast that way, leaving the outside cooked and golden brown, making you think that it's cooked on the inside, okay? Because you don't want raw dough on the inside. You want it cooked through evenly and leave you a nice perfect color on the outside as well. Now when you set your dough in, obviously be careful. You don't ever want to splatter hot oil on yourself. Now the minute it rises to the top of the oil, you're going to start flipping right away, because again, you want that even cook, perfect color throughout. And friends, at this stage of frying your donuts, you want to stay with your donuts while they cook and continually flip them. You don't want to walk away. So you see how it's evenly cooking on each side and they have inflated perfectly. You're going to remove them after about 6 minutes of cooking while continually flipping, and set them on a cooling rack and cook the rest of your donuts. We are almost done cooking these beauties. They came out so well. As you're cooking, keep in mind, friends, that the kind of pot you're cooking it in helps to regulate the heat. So if you notice that your donuts are browning too quickly, you might need to turn the heat source slightly down, okay? Because if you're cooking, for instance, in a cast iron enamel pot, it retains heat better than a stainless steel. In this case, I'm using a stainless steel cooking pot, so therefore I had to turn the heat down every now and then. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now when they're done cooling, you're going to coat them with sugar. This is an optional step. You don't have to do that. You can use a glaze, a plain glaze, as I did in my previous donut video, and then fill them with the custard later. But today I wanted a quick, easy route, so I used the sugar. Okay. Now, if you're going to use granulated sugar, also keep in mind that you can put some flavor into your granulated sugar, such as cinnamon or even nutmeg, or dry fruits. Just blend them up and add it to give a color. You know, you want your presentation to always be top notch. Now, our custard has cooled down perfectly. It stayed in the fridge for about 45 minutes. All right. Now we're going to stir it together sort of whip some air into it and get it to become the consistency we want it to be. So whisk it or stir it vigorously to get it to become that consistency. You want it to be jelly-like, okay? Just like custard should be. All right, now we're ready to fill these beauties up. Now to do that, we're going to be needing our pastry bag. You can use a Ziploc bag, turn to one corner of it, and you're going to cut that corner off. That will work too. But you need a tool like this, okay? Now this piece came with my cake decorating pieces, which you can find on Amazon.com or at your local grocery store such as Walmart, Kroger, Fry's, they all carry a variety of them. And this one is longer than the rest of the pieces, and it is beveled, okay, at the tip. So there's a slight slop across the horizontal. That way you're able to make a hole and you're able to go into the donuts and fill them up. And yeah, so you insert it as I did, pull the bag towards you, and then fill it with your custard. And then you can test and make sure it works. Now I'm using a skewer to poke a hole on the side of the donuts and kind of use it to create space, okay? So you're going to wiggle it back and forth to create that space to fill your donuts with. And there it is. Very easy. This to me was the best part, filling it up, and you can actually feel the dough entering its space, okay, like the space that's made perfectly for it. It's like, this is my space and I'm going to occupy it. Yeah, it was very therapeutic for me. So I hope you're able to try this recipe. It was fun to do. The children could not wait. They really loved it. I took one bite and I was in heaven. Yeah, this custard was very delicious, and I hope you're able to try the recipe. Just look at those. How beautiful are these? Very decadent. Now let's take a look at the inside of this donut. So perfect. Oh yes, and I was able to get a lot of custard into this one donut. So I hope you try it. You will love it. As always, friends and family, make it a great day and have fun, especially in that kitchen.